Tempranillo, the little early one, is the most known grape in Spain. It's grown just about everywhere in the country, but it's in Ribera del Duero where Tempranillo reigns king. In this episode, we journey to Ribera del Duero, exploring the different styles of Tempranillo from different producers. Enjoy the video, give it a like and a comment, and then subscribe to our channel for more. Ribera del Duero is an important wine region in the north part of Spain. Ribera del Duero is spread among four of the provinces of Castilla y León: Valladolid, Burgos, where most of the vineyards are located, Soria, and a tiny bit of Segovia. Ribera del Duero is almost entirely devoted to red wine and home to some of Spain's most sought after and highly regarded wines made from Tempranillo, the most widely planted grape variety.
The vineyards of Ribera del Duero stretch intermittently for over 70 miles along the River Duero, offering a diverse area with a mix of different soils, exposures, and elevations, some as high as a half mile above sea level. The climate is semi-arid with lots of sunlight, but extreme temperature swings from day to night, sometimes a 50+ degree difference. There are optimal conditions here for Tempranillo grapes, resulting in high quality red wines.
Ribera del Duero received official denomination de origin status in 1982 when the region had just 9 wineries. Nearly 30 years later, there are 300 wineries almost that call this area home.
Tempranillo, though, is a thick-skinned black grape ripening early to survive short growing seasons. It's capable of producing complex wines that develop over a long period of time. In Ribera del Duero, the wines must be 75% Tempranillo for it to be recognized by the DO.
Tempranillo grown in Ribera del Duero is so distinct that locally it's referred to as Tinto Fino and Tinta de País. The berries from this region are smaller, the skin is thicker, the color is darker, and the acidity runs high. These characteristics result in wines that run the flavor gamut from ripe red fruits to blueberry to plum and cassis to spice, leather, and tobacco.
Like all of Spain, Ribera del Duero wines have different classifications based on specific aging details. There is Joven or Joven Roble. The classification often sees no oak at all, but they can see 3 to 6 months of oak and will be released immediately after without aging in the bottle. Crianza wine is aged a minimum of 2 years with 1 year in oak. Reserva is aged a minimum of 3 years with at least 1 year in oak and remaining time in the bottle. And the Gran Reserva is aged a minimum of 5 years with at least 2 years in oak and the remaining time in the bottle.
And then we have cosecha, which means vintage, but this is also another classification that's sort of a catch-all, as it can mean everything from the youngest wine to the longest aging, most sophisticated wine, as long as it comes from Ribera del Duero and meets the minimum standards set by the appellation. So let's get tasting.
Absolutely, Ali. Let's get tasting because I have a 2020 Pago de los Capellanes Joven Roble Ribera del Duero for $15. It's 100% Tempranillo from Chaplin's Pay Winery. And the words on the label mean payment of the oak. And the vines are 25 years old, and they were cultivated on clay and calcareous soils. The wine was fermented in stainless steel and then spent 5 months in 300-liter French barrels. So let me just give this a little taste for you guys. Oh my gosh, the nose, intense aromas of black fruit, lavender, oh my gosh, kind of like bluebells, spicy nuances of oak wood on this, very nice. Very fresh, very structured, fleshy on the mouthfeel, vibrant acidity, but doesn't overpower. I love it. It's a long finish with a very aromatics throughout. I mean, I'm just wafting from the glass. I would have this with tapas and maybe some fusion cuisine, maybe that Japanese fusion, which is everyone loves so much. It's very, very nice wine. How about you?
Well, I have the Bodegas Antídoto Ribera del Duero 2019. It's a $25 wine, and it's labeled a cosecha. So located in the remote eastern part of Ribera del Duero in the Soria zone, Bodegas Antídoto is owned by French winemaker Bertrand Sordes and Spaniard David Hernando. Antídoto is Spanish for antidote, a name befitting the winery whose style is to make wines that have a sense of place and variety at an affordable price. And the vineyards are over 50 years old, many ungrafted. They're farmed organically with some biodynamic elements. So this wine spends 8 months in French barrels, approximately 15% new. Ooh, and I get these beautiful wild, brambly, dark fruit notes. There's almost a little bit of smoked bacon to it. It's a juicy plum, but it's not excessive. I mean, there's this beautiful acidity line that runs over the top of the palate. It's got some nice soft tannins that kind of coat the tongue, but this rush of acidity, of freshness runs over the tongue on top of it. This is just juicy yumminess. It's it's juicy, but structured. It's just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
I love it. Well, I have another one. It's the Bodegas Resalte de Penafiel 2018 Origen Ribera del Duero Tempranillo for only $21. It is yet another wonderful wine from this region, and all the wines from this bodegas are 100% Tempranillo, which is native to the area. The winery is 80 hectares of vineyards from different areas, though, of the Ribera del Duero. And that kind of allows for greater complexity in the grapes, having vineyards of different heights, orientation, and type of soil. So when they're all blended, it really gives a beautiful, beautiful mouthfeel and structure to this wine. Aged in 14 months in French oak, the average age of the vines is 30 years. And of this 100% Tempranillo, it's complex. Wow. Fruit, blackberry, cherries, licorice. And on the palate, so much of the same with integrated oak, full-bodied, my goodness, with ripe tannins. I love the price point on this wine. Textured, long, and lasting finish. Wow. Really, such a great mouthfeel. I can't believe it. I'm loving these wines from Spain.
Absolutely.
Right.
Ribera del Duero specifically.
Exactly. I mean, really, this is one of my favorite places, to be honest. How about you? What do you have now in your glass?
Well, we're going to go up a little in price here. I have the Bodega Gallego Zapatero 2012 UTL Finca Valdepalacios, Ribera del Duero. It's a $44 wine, also labeled with a cosecha, categorized. Bodegas y Viñedos Gallego Zapatero is a family-run winery with 9 hectares of vines spread across Ribera del Duero, and all grapes come from their low-yielding vineyards, which are farmed organically. This particular wine is a single vineyard wine, and the vines are 79-year-old bush vines. They've been hand-picked, destemmed, macerated, and then aged for 14 months in barrel. And I have to say that compared to the first one I had that had such beautiful fruit that jumped out of the glass, this one I get a lot more, I get the fruit notes, but I get a lot more kind of wood notes, oak notes coming out of it. It's got a deeper, darker sense to it. The tannins are a little more grippy. They're drying my mouth out just a little bit more.
Yep.
Trying to get that saliva back. But there's also a finesse to it. There's something nice about that. I mean, with those tannins, it's just saying, bring on some protein, bring on some fat, and let's just, find harmony in between them. So really, really, and a long finish. I'm still tasting this wine. So as I continue tasting it, what do you have there, Cindy?
Oh my gosh. Yet another beautiful wine from Ribera del Duero. This is Emilio Moro, one of my favorite producers, the 2018 Malleolus Ribera del Duero Tempranillo. Again, $47 Cosecha. over 100 years of winemaking is this brand, and the well-known winery is classic. Emilio Moro labels, but I love the labels. They stand out for their image of a medallion that tells the story of the family and from the beginning. So in this particular wine, we see a photo of Emilio Moro during the production process in the family's winery from 1972. That just tells you what the heritage and the passion of winemaking is when you have a winery that just speaks to that. So this wine, oh my gosh. Juicy, ripe, oh my gosh, so generous. I mean, just reminds me why I love Tempranillo so much. Old vine Tempranillo, fermented actually with their own strain of yeast and matured in French oak barrels. So it showcases the house style, which is ripe and fruit forward, and in this case, neatly integrated with generous amounts of oak. So I feel like it's full-bodied with fine tannins, super fresh. This was bottled in May of 2020 after being aged in oak. So silky, elegant, everything you want in a beautiful Tempranillo. So pair with roasted meats and stews. Whip that up this weekend. I've got my whole menu planned for the whole week.
Wow. Well, my final wine is the Pago de las Capellanes 2018 Crianza. So you had the Joven that we started with. I have the Crianza. Now we're going to go back down in price a little. This is $25. So that's just to say that we just had two cosechas that were in the mid 40s. And now a Crianza that has rules that ages it a little longer doesn't mean it has to be more expensive, which I think is something to note. It just means that I look on the label, I see Crianza, and I know that's been aged for 2 years. Right. And that just gives me a sense of knowledge of what I'm getting. So you had mentioned that they are, that the name Pago is Latin for a piece of land, and Capellanes means chaplain. You had mentioned that as their vineyard name. And it's honored in the name of the church in the town of Pedrosa, which is where they were until the end of the 19th century. It's a family project. It was started by the Rodero Villa family, and Francisco Rodero and wife Conchi Villa inherited the family land in the mid 1980s. So they were grape growers for many years until they started making their estate and wines around the mid 90s. So again, we know this is 12 months in French oak, followed by 12 months in the barrel. And I'm getting sort of like, it's almost like if I had to balance this between my three wines, I'm getting a lot of those kind of dark red fruits, a little bit of like a little vanilla or like a toast, an oak toastiness from the oak. But there's a real kind of prettiness to the nose. It's got everything. The tannins are softer, but they're there, and they're on the tongue, but they're not drying my mouth out like the previous one. Very juicy. My mouth is watering from this. And so it takes a little more intensity than my first wine and a little less tannin than my second, and kind of comes out in the middle. So it's nice and rounded. I think that aging, put it in the right place to enjoy right now. And for $25, that's pretty extraordinary. Wow. So, Ribera del Duero is one of Spain's most prestigious wine regions, and these 6 wines are just a few of the gems you can find in the region. So we hope you enjoyed this latest episode. Give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe to our channel for more. Enjoy Ribera del Duero, and cheers.